Donald Trump is hiding, and I'm going to show you exactly why Iran has put a price on his head right now, at this very moment. Because what's happening isn't some distant geopolitical chess match. This is personal. This is a regime in Tehran that has publicly stated they are coming for Donald Trump specifically. Not America, not our military, him. And here's what nobody's talking about. Trump knows it. He knows that right now there are Iranian operatives who have been given one mission: eliminate Donald Trump. And instead of showing strength, instead of displaying the toughness he built his entire brand on, what's he doing? He's panicking. He's scrambling. He's making desperate moves that are only making everything worse. Let me break down exactly what happened in the last 72 hours that has Trump absolutely terrified for his life. Because this isn't speculation. This is documented. This is real. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why Trump's own reckless decisions have put a target on his back that he cannot remove. But first, I need you to understand how we got here. Because if you want the complete breakdown of every single decision, every betrayal, every catastrophic choice that led to this moment, I've laid it all out in my book, War Timeline Breakdown. It's the only comprehensive record that connects Trump's Iran policy from day one to the death threats he's facing right now. I'll tell you how to get it later, but trust me, once you see how deep this goes, you'll want the full picture. Now, here's what happened. 3 days ago, Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei didn't just condemn Trump. He didn't issue some diplomatic protest. He authorized what intelligence sources are calling active targeting protocols. That's intelligence speak for assassination authorization. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has been given the green light to pursue Trump as a legitimate military target. Why? Because Trump, in his infinite stupidity, thought he could just bomb Iranian infrastructure with zero consequences. He thought he could team up with Netanyahu, strike Iran's critical energy facilities, and Iran would just, what? Take it? Roll over? Beg for mercy? Instead, Iran did something Trump never expected. They called his bluff. And now Trump is finding out that when you threaten a nation's survival, when you attack their energy lifeline, when you publicly humiliate a regime in front of the entire world, they don't forget. They don't forgive. And they sure as hell don't back down. Here's what Trump doesn't understand about escalation dominance, and this is critical. When you hit Iran, they don't just hit you back equally. They hit you back harder. They hit you in places you didn't expect. They make you understand that every action you take will cost you more than you're willing to pay. That's escalation dominance. That's how Iran fights. And Trump? Trump's out here making social media posts. He's typing in all caps. He's threatening massive retaliation, while Iran is literally circling his properties with drones. Do you know how weak that looks? Do you understand what Iran sees when they watch Trump frantically tweeting while their operatives are mapping Mar-a-Lago? They see a coward. Yet they see a man who's never actually been in danger in his entire privileged life, suddenly realizing that money can't buy safety. And they're exploiting that fear. Now I'm about to show you the specific intelligence that proves Iran isn't bluffing. But here's what you need to know first. Trump created this situation himself. Every single move he made since taking office has led directly to this moment. And the worst part? He had opportunities to avoid this. Multiple opportunities. He ignored every single warning. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal is going to shock you. Okay, so here's what U.S. intelligence has confirmed in the last 48 hours. And this is coming from multiple sources inside the Pentagon and CIA, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, specifically Quds Force operatives. I have been activated in at least 7 countries. These aren't protesters. These aren't militia members. These are Iran's most elite special operations units. The same units that tracked down and eliminated Iranian dissidents across Europe for decades. The same units that have never failed a high-value target mission. And their target right now? Donald Trump. Now, you might be thinking, come on, they can't just assassinate a U.S. president. And you'd be wrong. Because here's what Iran has calculated, and this is brilliant in its ruthlessness. Trump is so universally despised by America's traditional allies, so isolated diplomatically, so radioactive politically, that if something happened to him, half the world would shrug. Think about that. Think about what Trump has done to America's standing. He's insulted every ally. He's burned every bridge. He's made the United States look weak, erratic, and unreliable. So when Iran starts making moves against Trump personally, who's going to rush to defend him? NATO? The same NATO he called obsolete? The same allies he tariffed and demeaned? France isn't coming. Germany isn't coming. Canada sure as hell isn't coming. Trump built a wall of isolation around himself, and now he's trapped inside it. Here's the specific intelligence that should terrify you. Iranian cyber units have successfully penetrated Trump Organization servers in the last 2 weeks. They now have access to Trump's travel schedules, his security protocols, his property layouts. Everything. They know when he moves, where he moves, who's protecting him. And the Secret Service? They're stretched so thin because of Trump's constant golf trips and Mar-a-Lago weekends that there are gaps in coverage. Actual gaps. Moments where Trump is vulnerable, and Iran knows exactly when those moments occur. But it gets worse, because Iran isn't just planning some dramatic assassination attempt that would make them look like aggressors. No, they're smarter than that. They're waiting for the perfect moment when Trump's own actions create plausible deniability. You know what that means? It means they're waiting for the chaos Trump himself is creating to provide cover. And with the way Trump's conducting this war, with the reckless strikes and zero coordination with allies, that chaos is everywhere. 3 days ago, drones were spotted over Fort McNair in Washington, D.C. Unexplained drones. Nobody knows where they came from. The Pentagon can't track them. The Air Force can't intercept them. And they're flying directly over the military base where Trump's cabinet members are living because they're too scared to live in regular neighborhoods anymore. You think that's a coincidence? You think those are just hobbyist drones? Iran is sending a message. We can reach you anywhere, we can get to anyone, and you can't stop us. Trump knows this. His security detail knows this. That's why he hasn't been to a public event in 6 days. That's why his travel schedule is suddenly classified. That's why Mar-a-Lago has been turned into a fortress with anti-aircraft systems and counter-drone technology. He's hiding. And here's what makes this absolutely pathetic. Trump built his entire image on being tough, the strong man, the alpha. The guy who doesn't back down from anyone? And now he's cowering behind concrete barriers and electronic countermeasures because Iran called his bluff, and he's terrified. You want to know how we got to this exact moment? Every decision point that led from Trump's first day in office to Iranian hit squads tracking his movements? That's exactly what I document in War Timeline Breakdown. Because this didn't happen overnight. This was years of catastrophic decisions compounding on each other. And if you want to understand the full scope, you need to read how each domino fell. But right now, let me show you what Iran is specifically planning, because U.S. intelligence has intercepted communications that reveal their exact strategy. And it's far more sophisticated than anyone's talking about publicly. Here's what Iran has done that is absolutely genius from a strategic standpoint, even though it's morally reprehensible. They've created a trap that Trump cannot escape. Every move he makes triggers a worse response. Every action creates a bigger consequence. He's stuck in an escalation spiral where the only way out is total submission, and Trump's ego won't allow that. So what does that mean? It means war, real war, not proxy strikes, not limited operations. Actual full-scale regional conflict that's going to cost American lives, destroy the global economy, and potentially trigger World War III. And it's all because Trump can't admit he made a mistake. Let me walk you through the trap step by step so you understand how screwed we are. Step 1. Trump and Netanyahu bombed the South Pars gas field in Iran. This is Iran's most critical energy infrastructure. It supplies a huge percentage of their economy. Trump thought this would cripple Iran and force them to negotiate. Step 2. Iran responded by hitting Qatar's North Field facility. Qatar is a U.S. ally. Qatar hosts the largest American military base in the Middle East, and Iran just struck 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas supply that comes from that facility. Now Trump has a choice: defend Qatar, which means escalating against Iran, or do nothing, which means abandoning an ally and looking weak. Step 3. Trump chose to escalate. He authorized strikes on Iranian missile production facilities. The problem? Iran has hundreds of these facilities. You can't destroy them all. And for every one Trump hits, Iran activates 3 more. With Step 4, Iran hit Saudi Arabian oil infrastructure. Direct strikes on the facilities that supply oil to Europe and Asia. Global oil prices spiked to $110 per barrel. Americans are now paying $5.50 for gas. And it's going to get worse. Step 5. Trump threatens massive retaliation if Iran continues. Iran responds by hitting U.S. military positions in Iraq and Syria. 13 American soldiers dead, dozens wounded, and those numbers are increasing. Step 6. This is where we are right now. Trump has to choose full invasion of Iran or back down. If he invades, we're talking about a war that makes Iraq and Afghanistan look like minor skirmishes. If he backs down, he looks weak, and every adversary on earth will exploit it. Either choice destroys him. That's the trap. And here's what's really terrifying. Iran knows Trump's psychology better than Trump knows himself. They've studied him. They understand that his ego won't let him back down, even when backing down is the smart move. They know he'll keep escalating. They're counting on it. Because every time Trump escalates, Iran's position gets stronger. Their population rallies behind the regime. Their allies in Russia and China provide more support. Their proxies across the Middle East activate. And America becomes more isolated. Iran is playing chess while Trump is playing checkers. No, that's giving Trump too much credit. Trump is flipping the board over and declaring victory while Iran methodically captures every piece. And the cost? The cost is American lives. The cost is economic catastrophe. The cost is global instability. You want proof? Look at what happened in the last 24 hours. Iran-backed militias in Iraq launched coordinated drone strikes on 3 U.S. bases simultaneously. These aren't random attacks. This is coordinated strategy. They hit Al-Assad Air Base, Camp Taji, and Tower 22 all at the same time. U.S. forces couldn't defend against all 3 because they don't have enough anti-drone systems deployed. Why? Because Trump's budget cuts to military readiness left us vulnerable. Because Trump's failure to maintain alliances means we can't share European defense technology. Because Trump's chaotic leadership means nobody trusts U.S. military planning anymore. And while American soldiers are dying, while families are getting notification that their loved ones aren't coming home, where's Trump? He's on social media. And he's posting about how Iran will pay dearly. He's threatening nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Let that sink in. Trump is so desperate, so cornered, so absolutely terrified of looking weak that he's threatening nuclear strikes on Iran. Do you understand what that means? Do you comprehend the level of insanity required to threaten nuclear war because you can't handle being outmaneuvered? And Iran? Iran's response was perfect. They didn't threaten back. They didn't engage in rhetorical escalation. They just quietly moved more assets into position because they know that Trump's threats are empty. They know he doesn't have the support to use nuclear weapons. They know he's bluffing. And every bluff Trump makes that doesn't materialize makes him weaker. Every red line he draws that gets crossed with no consequence makes him more pathetic. Every ultimatum he issues that Iran ignores makes him more irrelevant. This is what defeat looks like in real time. This is what happens when a con man tries to play statesman. This is what happens when ego replaces strategy. But here's what nobody's reporting, and this is where it gets really dark. You need to understand something that the mainstream media is dancing around because they don't want to state it this baldly. America's allies have abandoned us. not because they hate America, but because they cannot trust Donald Trump. And that abandonment is why we're vulnerable to Iran right now. Let me give you specifics, because this is documented. When Trump authorized the strike on South Pars, he didn't tell NATO. He didn't inform the European Union. He didn't coordinate with Arab allies. He just did it. Him and Netanyahu made the call and executed without consulting anyone who might have to deal with the consequences. You know what that is? That's not leadership. That's not even unilateralism. That's just reckless stupidity. And the response from our allies was immediate and brutal. France's President Macron issued a statement saying France would not participate in any military operations related to Trump's Iran policy. Germany's chancellor said the same thing. The UK, which has been America's most reliable ally for 75 years, said they would reconsider their commitment to Middle East operations. Canada just straight up said no. We will not support this war. Direct quote from their prime minister. So when Trump is now desperately calling on NATO to help defend shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, when he's begging allies to contribute forces, when he needs international support to contain Iran's response, what's he hearing? Silence. Because you can't spend years insulting allies, calling them freeloaders, threatening to withdraw from NATO, imposing tariffs on their economies, and then expect them to rush to your defense when your own reckless decisions blow up in your face. Trump thought he could treat international relations like a real estate deal. Push people around, make threats, demand concessions. But nations remember, and they don't forget. The Arab states? The ones Trump thought he bought with arms deals and diplomatic recognition? They're hedging their bets. And Saudi Arabia just announced they're opening dialogue with Iran. The UAE is doing the same thing. Jordan won't even let U.S. forces use their airspace anymore. These are countries that Trump thought were in his pocket, and they're all abandoning him because they can see he's losing. They can see Iran is winning this confrontation, and they're not going to go down with Trump's sinking ship. Qatar, the country Trump claims he's defending, just issued a statement condemning both the U.S. and Israel for the strikes that triggered this crisis. Qatar, the country hosting 10,000 American troops, they're publicly criticizing Trump. That's how bad this is. That's how isolated we've become. And here's the really terrifying part. When America's allies abandon us, our adversaries get bold. Russia just announced they're providing Iran with advanced satellite intelligence. China is selling Iran drone technology. North Korea is reportedly shipping weapons to Iranian proxies. The entire world is choosing sides, and they're not choosing us. They're choosing against Trump. Because Trump has made America the unreliable partner, the unstable actor, the rogue element in the international system. And Iran knows this. Iran is exploiting this. That's why they're escalating with confidence. They know Trump is alone. They know he can't assemble an international coalition. They know that if this goes to full war, America is fighting by itself. Do you know what happens when America fights alone? We lose. I don't mean we lose battles. I mean we lose wars. Vietnam? We were alone? Iraq? Afghanistan? Our coalition of the willing was a joke, and everyone knew it. Wars aren't won with military superiority alone. They're won with international support, economic leverage, diplomatic pressure, and sustainable strategy. Trump has none of that. None. So Iran can sustain this conflict indefinitely. They can keep hitting our assets, keep raising oil prices, keep activating proxies, keep making Trump look weak. And what can Trump do about it? He can't invade because he doesn't have the forces. He can't blockade because he doesn't have the naval support. He can't sanction because China and Russia will just help Iran circumvent. He's powerless. And he knows it. And that's why he's panicking. That's why the threats are getting more extreme. That's why he's talking about nuclear weapons. That's why he's making desperate social media posts. Because when you have no actual options, all you have left is noise. And Iran? Iran's just watching him flail. They're watching him burn through credibility. They're watching allies distance themselves. They're watching the American public turn against this war. And they're waiting. Because they know that every day this continues, Trump gets weaker. Every casualty makes him more vulnerable politically. Every economic consequence makes Americans angrier. Every ally that abandons us makes the next step harder. Iran doesn't need to win quickly. They just need to not lose. And as long as they keep fighting, Trump is losing. Now, if you want to understand exactly how Trump destroyed these alliances, every specific decision that led to this isolation, I've documented all of it chronologically in War Timeline Breakdown, because this didn't happen by accident. This was a systematic destruction of American diplomatic capital, and you need to see the full timeline to understand how completely Trump has failed. But right now, I need to show you what's happening to American troops on the ground, because this is where it gets personal. Let's talk about what's actually happening to American soldiers right now, because while Trump is safe behind layers of security, real people are dying. In the last week alone, 17 American service members have been killed in this war. 17. And those are just the deaths the Pentagon is confirming. Intelligence sources say the real number is higher because some casualties are being classified to avoid public panic. Let me read you some of these names because they're not statistics, they're people. Staff Sergeant Michael Rodriguez, 28 years old, killed in a drone strike on Al-Assad Air Base. He leaves behind a wife and 2 children. Specialist Jennifer Chen, 22 years old, killed when Iranian missiles hit Camp Taji. She'd been deployed for 3 months. Corporal David Thompson, 25 years old, killed in a rocket attack on a convoy in Iraq. His family found out through social media before the official notification arrived. These are real people, with real families, who died because Donald Trump doesn't understand consequences. And here's what makes this absolutely sickening. Trump is using their deaths for photo ops. He's showing up at dignified transfer ceremonies with cameras. He's posting about honoring our fallen heroes on social media. He's exploiting their coffins for political points. The families don't want him there. Multiple families have specifically requested that Trump not attend the ceremonies. They've said publicly that they don't want him anywhere near their loved ones' remains. But he shows up anyway with his photographers and his media team. You know why? Because he thinks it makes him look strong. He thinks standing next to flag-draped coffins gives him credibility. He thinks if he's seen honoring the dead, people will forget that he's the reason they're dead. But the families know, the troops know, the military knows. I've been talking to sources inside the Pentagon, and the morale is at an all-time low. Soldiers deployed to the Middle East feel abandoned. They feel like they're fighting a war with no clear objective, no support from allies, and a commander-in-chief who's making decisions based on ego instead of strategy. One officer told me, off the record, "We're not fighting to win. We're fighting to not make Trump look bad, and soldiers are dying for his image." Let that sink in. American troops are dying not to defend America, not to protect national interests, but to protect Trump's fragile ego. And the conditions they're fighting in? Horrific. Because of Trump's failure to maintain alliances, U.S. forces don't have access to European air defense systems. Because of budget cuts, they don't have enough drones to counter Iranian attacks. Because of logistics failures, they're running low on ammunition and medical supplies. Iranian drones are hitting U.S. positions at will because we don't have the countermeasures deployed. Iranian missiles are overwhelming our defenses because we don't have enough batteries. Iranian proxies are operating with near impunity because we don't have the intelligence sharing agreements we used to have. And Trump's response? We have the greatest military in the world. That's his answer. Just declare victory and hope reality doesn't matter. But reality does matter when you're a 19-year-old Marine taking cover from drone strikes every night. Reality matters when you're a medic trying to save lives with insufficient supplies. Reality matters when you're watching your friends die because the mission doesn't make sense. And here's what really breaks my heart. These soldiers are professionals. They're doing their jobs despite Trump's incompetence. They're holding positions despite being undermanned and undersupplied. They're completing missions despite having no confidence in their leadership. But there's a breaking point. There's a moment when even the most dedicated professionals say, this is unsustainable. We're approaching that moment. Reports from inside multiple bases indicate that morale is collapsing. Re-enlistment rates are plummeting. Officers are requesting transfers. The military is hemorrhaging experienced personnel who don't want to die in Trump's ego war. And you know what Trump's doing about it? Nothing. Because he doesn't care about soldiers. He never has. Remember when he called them losers and suckers? Remember when he mocked Gold Star families? Remember when he dodged the draft 5 times? This is who he's always been, a coward who sees soldiers as props. And now that his decisions are getting them killed, he's using their deaths as propaganda. It's disgusting. It's morally bankrupt. And it should disqualify him from any leadership position. But it gets worse because the casualties aren't just military. While American soldiers are dying and Trump is hiding behind security, the economic consequences of this war are destroying ordinary Americans' lives right now. And it's going to get catastrophically worse. Let's start with what you're already feeling. Gas prices. Right now, the national average is $5.47 per gallon. In some states, it's over $6. And analysts are predicting it's going to hit $8 before this is over. You know why? Because Iran has effectively shut down 30% of oil flow through the Strait of Hormuz. Every tanker that tries to pass through is getting harassed by Iranian patrol boats, threatened with missile strikes, or forced to pay transit fees to Iranian-backed militias. Our insurance companies have tripled rates for ships traveling through the region. Some shipping companies have just stopped using the route entirely, which means they're going around Africa, which adds 2 weeks to transit times and doubles fuel costs. All of that gets passed to consumers. That's you. That's your gas tank. That's your grocery bill. That's your heating costs. But it's not just oil. Iran has also hit LNG facilities in Qatar. Natural gas prices in Europe have spiked 400%. 400%. European industries are shutting down because they can't afford energy. That means supply chain disruptions. That means product shortages. That means inflation. Economists are predicting we're heading into the worst recession since 2008. Unemployment is expected to hit 12% by next quarter. The stock market has lost $4 trillion in value in the last 2 weeks. Retirement accounts are getting wiped out. This is the cost of Trump's war. This is what happens when you start a conflict with no plan, no allies, and no exit strategy. And the American people are starting to understand this. They're connecting the dots between Trump's decisions and their suffering. They're seeing their paychecks shrink while oil company profits explode. They're watching their savings evaporate while defense contractors get richer. This war is transferring wealth from ordinary Americans to a tiny elite. And Trump is facilitating it because he has no idea what he's doing. But here's what should terrify you most. We're only at the beginning. If this escalates to full war, if Trump actually invades Iran, the economic cost will be measured in tens of trillions. The Iraq War cost $3 trillion, and that was a country with 40 million people. Iran has 88 million people. It's geographically larger. It's militarily stronger. It has defensive alliances with Russia and China. A war with Iran would make Iraq look cheap. We're talking about $10 to $15 trillion in direct costs, another $20 trillion in economic disruption, the complete collapse of the global financial system as we know it. And who pays for that? You do. Your kids do. Your grandkids will still be paying for Trump's ego war in 2070. But Trump doesn't care because he's never experienced economic hardship. He's never had to choose between gas and groceries. He's never worried about losing his job. He's never seen his retirement account disappear. He lives in a gold-plated bubble where money is infinite and consequences don't exist. And he's making decisions that destroy real people's lives because he cannot comprehend what normal economic struggle feels like. Meanwhile, Iran? Iran's economy has been under sanctions for 40 years. They know how to survive economic pressure. They've built redundancies. They've created black market channels. They've learned to make do with less. America hasn't. Americans aren't prepared for real scarcity. We're not ready for gas rationing. We're not ready for food shortages. We're not ready for rolling blackouts. And if this war continues, that's where we're headed. Because modern economies are fragile. They depend on global supply chains that can be disrupted easily. They depend on energy flows that can be choked off. They depend on confidence that can evaporate overnight. Trump is destroying all of that. Every decision he makes creates more uncertainty. Every threat he issues makes markets more volatile. Every ally he alienates makes the system more fragile. And when it breaks, not if when, the collapse will be faster and more severe than anyone expects. Because that's how complex systems fail. Not gradually, but all at once. The warning signs are everywhere. But Trump isn't listening because he's too busy panicking about his own life to care about the economy. Now we need to talk about the thing everyone's avoiding because it's too terrifying to contemplate: nuclear weapons. Trump has threatened to use nuclear weapons against Iran 3 times in the last week. 3 times. He's talked about unleashing fire and fury. He's referenced options that will make Hiroshima look small. He said Iran will be obliterated from the map. This is insane. This is a level of irresponsibility that should trigger immediate removal from office. But here's what makes it even more terrifying. There are credible reports that Trump has asked Pentagon officials multiple times how quickly nuclear weapons could be deployed against Iranian targets. He's inquired about limited nuclear strikes. He's wanted to know if tactical nukes could be used without triggering global retaliation. The Pentagon has been slow-walking these requests. They've been finding excuses to delay. They've been hoping Trump forgets or moves on to something else. But Trump is persistent, and he's getting more desperate. And desperate people make catastrophic decisions. Here's what you need to understand about nuclear weapons and Iran. If Trump uses nukes, even tactical ones, the response won't be proportional. It will be apocalyptic. Russia has stated publicly that any nuclear weapon use in the Middle East would trigger their own nuclear response. China has said the same thing. The global nuclear taboo is the only thing preventing total annihilation, and Trump is threatening to shatter it. And Iran? Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons yet, but they have biological and chemical weapons. They have cyber capabilities that could shut down American power grids. They have sleeper cells in multiple countries who could activate simultaneously. If Trump nukes Iran, the retaliation won't be nuclear. It will be asymmetric, distributed, and devastating in ways we can't predict. Power grids collapsing, water treatment facilities compromised, financial systems hacked, chemical attacks on civilian populations. This is what nuclear escalation in the 21st century looks like. It's not just mushroom clouds, it's the complete breakdown of global civilization. And the World Health Organization knows this. They've issued warnings about preparing for radiological incidents. They've started pre-positioning medical supplies for radiation exposure. They've quietly told member states to prepare for worst-case scenarios. The WHO doesn't do that unless they think the risk is real. Unless they've seen intelligence that suggests Trump might actually be crazy enough to push the button. Think about that. Our international health organizations are preparing for nuclear war because Donald Trump is president. Because his ego and his fear have led us to the brink of apocalypse. And you know what's really sick? Some of Trump's supporters are cheering this on. They're excited about the possibility of nuking Iran. They think it would show strength. They think it would send a message. These people have no concept of what nuclear weapons actually do. They've been propagandized to think of war as entertainment, as a video game where you rack up points and respawn. But nuclear weapons don't respawn people. Nuclear weapons don't create victories. Nuclear weapons create wastelands that last for millennia. If Trump uses nukes against Iran, the radiation doesn't stay in Iran. It spreads through the atmosphere. It contaminates water supplies across the region. It creates cancer clusters for generations. And it guarantees that every hostile nation on Earth will accelerate their own nuclear programs. Because if the U.S. can use nukes without global consequences, then why shouldn't everyone else? We'd be triggering a new nuclear arms race that makes the Cold War look restrained. Within 10 years, 50 countries would have nuclear weapons. Terrorist groups would have dirty bombs. The world would be saturated with weapons designed to end civilization. All because Trump couldn't handle being outmaneuvered by Iran. This is the stakes we're dealing with. This is the reality of having a malignant narcissist with access to the nuclear codes. And Congress won't stop him. The Supreme Court won't stop him. The Pentagon is trying. But they can't disobey direct orders forever. We are one Trump meltdown away from nuclear holocaust. And Trump is melting down right now because Iran is threatening his life, and he's too scared to think rationally. So let me bring this all together and tell you exactly what's happening right now. Donald Trump started a war he cannot win because his ego wouldn't allow him to admit weakness. Iran called his bluff and is now systematically destroying his presidency, his legacy, and potentially his life. America's allies have abandoned us because Trump burned every bridge. American soldiers are dying for no strategic purpose. The economy is collapsing, and we're on the brink of nuclear war. All of this because one pathetic, weak, cowardly man couldn't handle being told no. Trump is not a tough guy. He's not a strong man. He's not even competent. He's a scared little con artist who got in over his head and is now desperately trying to threaten his way out, while Iran calmly, methodically, professionally dismantles everything he's built. And you know what Iran knows that Trump doesn't? They know that time is on their side. They know that every day this continues, Trump gets weaker. They know that he's politically toxic, diplomatically isolated, and strategically incompetent. So they're going to keep the pressure on. They're going to keep making him look weak. They're going to keep raising the stakes until Trump either backs down in humiliation or escalates into catastrophe. Either way, Trump loses. Either way, America loses. Because Trump has put us in a position where there are no good options. And this is what happens when you elect a reality TV con man to the most important job in the world. This is what happens when you choose ego over expertise. This is what happens when you believe that loudness equals strength. You get death. You get economic collapse. You get nuclear brinkmanship. You get a nation in crisis led by a man in panic. Trump is hiding from Iran right now. He's surrounded by security. He's moving locations constantly. He's terrified that Iranian operatives are going to do to him what he's done to thousands of Iranians. End his life without warning. And you know what? That fear is justified. Because Iran has the means, the motive, and the opportunity. And Trump has no friends left to protect him. This is the bed he made. Now he's lying in it, terrified, alone, and completely out of options. Donald Trump, you wanted to be remembered as the strong president who brought America back. Instead, you'll be remembered as the weak coward who brought us to the brink of World War III because you couldn't handle being outsmarted. You're pathetic. You're weak. You're a failure. And the entire world knows it. Iran knows it. Russia knows it. China knows it. Your own allies know it. And soon, everyone who supported you will know it too. You are the weakest president in American history, and you've made America weaker by association. That's your legacy. That's what you'll be remembered for. Not strength, not success, weakness and failure. You absolute loser. Now, if you want the complete breakdown of every decision that led to this moment, if you want to understand the full timeline from Trump's first day to the death threats he's facing now, then you need to read War Timeline Breakdown. Link is in the description. It's the most comprehensive documentation of Trump's Iran disaster that exists. And hit subscribe because this is moving fast. Iran's next move could come at any moment. Trump's next desperate decision could change everything. You need to be here when it happens. This is not slowing down. This is accelerating. Stay informed, stay prepared, and understand that we are living through one of the most dangerous moments in modern history. All because Donald Trump is too weak to admit he was wrong.